Welcome back to another episode of the Boro4Boro podcast, where we take a bite out of the New York City real estate scene. I'm Matthew Wynter, and I'm here with my co-host,
Isaiah Ajala,
Traci Byers,
Scottie Cabrera.
And today we're going to actually talk about the market overall. For those at home, you may not know that I think we're in a buyer's market. Can we say we're in a buyer's market?
I'd say so.
Definitely.
All right, so we're gonna dive a little deeper into even what that means. But right now, coming fresh off of the Labor Day holiday, everyone's nice and rested. Everyone got their vacations in. But now people want to buy and sell homes. So naturally, you want to be able to understand what the market's looking like and who has the upper hand, which right now, I think it's the buyer, safe to say, right?
Yeah.
In some markets, yeah.
In some markets,
Yeah.
right? All right, so let's talk about that, Trey. What do you see in Uptown?
Well, Uptown, I'm seeing definitely a slower market. Townhouses are sitting on the market much longer than, let's say, 2 years ago, a year ago. So right now, sellers are offering a lot of price drops, which is great for the buyers. You know, come in. This is actually the best time for you to buy a townhouse in Upper Manhattan. But I think a lot of buyers are scared by the headlines with the interest rates dropping. Hopefully they'll be off the fence and, want to buy townhouses. Yeah. It's a great time for that.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, that townhouses are definitely on the market a lot longer.
Yeah.
I just sent out mailers actually, so that I did the stats, I did the numbers, and it's like things that would have sold in maybe 2 months are now on the market for at least 4, 5, 6 months. Some even up to a year.
You think people are getting scared by the price? Is that what it is?
I think people are being more calculated. They want to see what else is going to come to the market, and just of course headlines, politics, of course. We're getting closer to the new year, so people are trying to wait maybe and see if something's going to change by next year. Interest rates, of course, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the monthly payment has really hindered a lot of buyers. Upward of putting down 20%, your monthly payments could be $16,000 for, let's say, a property that's $2 million plus. So I think once the interest rates come down, that's when your monthly payment can come down because your interest rate is lower. So other than that, I still feel buyers should be encouraged by putting in lower offers and trying to get the best price for that house. And obviously, you need to use an agent, a good agent, to help you negotiate with that.
Sure. I agree with you with what you said about the interest rates, because I have that townhouse in Harlem. And with the interest rates, I think when we were talking about it last year, payments were like doubled more than the principal.
Yeah. So
I think it was coming up to like 12 or 15 grand that you'll have to pay out a month just because of the interest rates.
Yeah.
So I think, a lot of buyers have been waiting on the sideline and kicking tires and seeing what is out there for them, because it's just in some cases a bit not feasible.
And versus Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn is a totally different market. Buyer's market, not so much maybe. The inventory is low, but the demand is high, right?
Yeah, the demand is high, but I think it still goes for buyers looking in Brooklyn, right? Because you have a certain budget, but at the same time, it's like you're still looking at like that interest rate is still affecting what you can pay out each month. So I have seen like buyers waiting on the sideline. Not as much coming to the open houses. There's definitely like a slowdown in the number of, over the last year I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
And I think we can get into like what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Because I just spoke to Itzy actually, who was my manager in Brooklyn. And she just said that there was a significant uptick in the number of buyers coming to open houses this last weekend. Yeah. So it may be shifting because of the number of buyers coming through like just this weekend. And with the lower interest rates, I know they just dropped interest rates slightly. So it might be shifting, but I know for the last year, it was definitely like a buyer's.
That's definitely what we've been seeing in Queens. I mean, I think it might be an anomaly in comparison to the other markets, but there has been kind of a steady stream of just open house traffic all throughout the summer months. I think with inventory just being at a lower rate overall, people just want to see what's out there. Right. Even if it's not necessarily the highest quality, they're just like, all right, let me at least get my eyes on it, see what it looks like. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're moving as quickly, but people are definitely, or have been at least over the last few months, especially leading up to the last week, which I agree, where like everyone and their mother was like, all right, we're going to go to these open houses. Right. There's lines around the block sometimes. Even at a property that I had, let's say the open house starts at 12. 11:55, people are like, "Are you guys there?" The doorbell ringing. People want to be the first one. Where if it's really good quality inventory is always gonna go. But people, if it's a quality thing and they saw it online and they're like, "No, we're going to this," they want to be the first one in because they don't want to miss out.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
So before we go, can we explain the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market for anyone?
Yeah. So buyer's market versus seller's market, and there's also a neutral market. So obviously neutral just means that's neither. It really is kind of who has the upper hand at that moment. So it always goes back to supply and demand, right?
Right.
So we know that with the inventory having been somewhat low, buyers tend to have a little bit more of the upper hand because for them, they can be a little bit more picky in terms of what they have to choose from.
Right.
And so now with all of the factors that we talked about, whether it's interest rates, politics, you name it, I think we are going to still be in even more of a buyer's market, maybe through the end of the year, depending on how things go. But unless inventory really starts to match up with that demand, I think we'll probably stay in a buyer's market, and seller's market really probably won't be a thing until we get more sellers who at least have some confidence in the market and all those conditions who actually want to get off the sidelines and list their property.
I think also interest rates will play a big part in it as well.
Yeah.
As we just said before, with high interest rates, like your monthly payments, like for some people, it's not feasible. Like I said, talk about the Harlem townhouse, it was almost double the principal. Right. So I think once that starts trickling down some more, I know we just had a rate cut about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Once we start seeing that trickle down into like the 5s and the 4s again, I think that's when we go.
Will we see that though? I don't even know I'm not confident, but I'm also not an economist.
Yeah. But if we do see it trickle down, definitely going to be in the 5s. I just saw something from Wells Fargo and they're like high 5s.
Yeah, my client just got a commitment letter and it said 5.6 for 30 year. So not too bad compared to last year. We were in the 8s.
Yeah.
And I think I just seen a study too that more people are actually refinancing their homes right now at this point. So that's happening a lot. And just to piggyback off the whole buyer's market, just wanted to say, like, most of the time in buyer's markets, what happens also is you see a lot of concessions. A lot of sellers are willing to do, they're obviously cutting their prices down, and they're offering a lot of incentives to buyers to entice them to purchase their property. So,
I have a townhouse in Brooklyn right now, and we're offering a seller's concession. Initially, it was like the buyer wanted something ridiculous. You want like 20%. And I think the most you can do on a conventional loan is only 6%.
Right.
So we had to rejig it, try and play maths and get that 6% seller's concession to him. But yeah, you definitely see more seller's concessions.
Like I have a seller actually selling a co-op, and she just offered like 6 months of the maintenance paid. Things like that. Like you just want to get that buyer. Like, all right, well, it's a good price, and I get that too. So it's like.
It's a leverage game. I mean, at the end of the day, the buyers, for all intents and purposes, they're coming out of pocket a lot of money. So for them, they want to be able to feel like there's something that they're getting a good deal. Even though New York City, I mean, what a good deal looks like in comparison to somewhere else may be different. But if they're going to commit that kind of money towards a property for 30 years, they want to at least be able to feel like they got a concession of some kind of percentage back to help them offset those closing costs.
Absolutely. And with it being a buyer's market, I guess this is the time for like buyers to come out and really start kicking tires. Because once it becomes a seller's market, then you may be. Can we swear on it?
Give it a try. We'll see if it makes sense.
You might be asked out, right? But,
I didn't know that was going to use. The Brit says we can't say us.
But yeah, with it being a buyer's market. Time for buyers to come out and, do some negotiation. Do some negotiating, and like Tracy said, get yourself a good agent that can, guide you in how you negotiate and what kind of concessions you kind of ask for.
No, I agree. How about this? Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we go deep into that because I do think the value of a really good buyer's agent right now is at an all-time high, especially given the unique market situation that if this is the window, you want to be able to make sure that you understand what actually categorizes a good buyer's agent and what are the things that if you're at home thinking about working with someone, what are the things that you should be looking for as a quality?
For sure. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, great.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
All right, so we took a quick break, and I'm excited to go into the topic that we talked about before. But before we do that, I want you guys to try out these super, super, super delicious dumplings from Dumpling Magic in LIC. So give them a try. The white ones are chicken. The green ones are veggie.
Oh, you doing without the sauce? Okay.
Oh, no sauce.
Oh, man, you just went right into it. You said
it was straight dry glizzy. That's crazy.
Where's it from? Sorry, Matt. Where's it from?
These are from Dumpling Magic in Queens, specifically in Long Island City. And so Dumpling Magic is actually a cart. But as you can usually tell with a cart, whenever there's a line for that food, you're usually surprised and you want to figure out why. And so Dumpling Magic is actually, it's Nepalese or Nepalese. I hope I'm saying it right. But it's from Nepal. And Long Island City, for those who don't know, Long Island City is kind of becoming even more so known for the array of different Asian cuisines that you can get. So everything from Szechuan to Thai to Nepalese. And so I haven't seen any other Nepalese restaurants, but this cart right here is amazing. So
you gotta go to Jackson Heights.
Oh yeah, Jackson Heights. You get everything.
Yeah,
you get everything in Jackson Heights. But before the break, we were starting to talk about just the process of getting into the market, working with a buyer, and I know all of us, working with a buyer's agent. Sorry, right. And I know all of us. We work with buyers. Some of us more often than others, but has that always been the case? Like, what is it that your business has looked like over the course of your career where you were either focusing more on buyers or focusing more on the listing side? You want to start off, Tracy?
Sure. So I've been in the business for 9 years. So the first half of my business was rentals. And so I accumulated a lot of rental clients who actually became buyers. And then from buyers, I started going after sellers. And one way I did that was just farming my neighborhood that I live in, which is Harlem. And I became like the Harlem expert, Upper Manhattan expert. And then I started branching out to other neighborhoods. But I'm known primarily in Upper Manhattan.
Uptown Tracy.
Uptown Tracy.
It's a brand name.
She stands by it. She said.
We all took a bite at us.
Yeah, I know. Took a bite at the wrong time.
No.
Did you always do multifamilies, Isaiah?
Basically, yeah. But Scott, you go first while I finish.
Yeah. All good. So I got into business. I started cold calling. So I would naturally, attack the listing side of things. And I got my first listing actually in a co-op.
Which is not easy to get.
No, it's not at all. Not at all. I mean, but, scripts and things like that help. And then, so I got on the listing side. And then from the listing side, of course, you naturally tend to get buyers. If you're good, you can convert some of the buyers that come in without an agent, So it's not necessary. People, sometimes I think buyers have, misconstrued that it's bad to work with the listing agent. It's not necessarily bad to work with the listing agent. You can work with without an agent, you can work with the listing agent.
But when you say that, do you mean that, because obviously we know, but people at home may not understand that. Is it people who have just come to your open house and they don't have an agent and then they're like, I like you, Scottie.
Right.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, generally, yeah. So they'll like, maybe they'll like that I follow up, or the way I followed up, or my demeanor, whatever the case is. They just might like something or don't know how to go about it, and you just create that value for them and give them that information. And I always give them the option, like you don't have to work with me.
I like how you said creating the value.
Yeah.
People think we just open doors, but
right,
we don't.
Right. So you definitely have to create the value for them and just help them to see that process, because there's a lot of buyers out there that don't know where to go. They're just popping up at open houses, but they don't know that process of what to do.
Right.
So answering your question, sorry, Tracy. So I got into the business, right? So I used to work a lot exclusively with investors, right? So, like you might get letters in your house saying, hey, we want to buy your house, whatever. So one day I called him, I was like, listen, I want to get into your business, teach me. And he was just like, all right, these are the people you call, this is where you go to find like distressed properties and whatever. And then he started teaching me. He didn't really teach me how to cold call, but he was like, just call them. I was like, all right, cool. So I started reading books on how to cold call and scripts and things of that nature. And just started calling. So when I got into the business, I was getting a lot of townhouse listings. Because obviously investors, they like to work with, they like to buy multi-family, single families and things of that nature. So I was getting a lot of townhouse listings. And then from there, like Scottie said, you work with buyers, you sold someone's house, they'll be like, my niece wants to buy something. Right. And then you work with, your referrals. But even to this day, even though I have a load of buying clients, my go-to is still townhouse listings.
I'd say I like the listing side more. I think you have more power when you have the listing, obviously. Yeah. And then that can catapult into more business from having that listing. So, you have people.
Follow-up question for you on that, though, because obviously investors are kind of like your sweet spot. Obviously, that's where you've had the most experience. But is there a difference in the way that you approach your business and working with an investor versus, say, a first-time home buyer or somebody like that?
Yeah. A first-time home buyer, you definitely have to handle them with more care, right? Investors, you can have like back-of-envelope conversations with them because they know everything. Right. And even with my time working with investors, it's just like, tell me the dimensions, how many stories, is it brick or frame? Right. And it's like they already know the maths off of that, right? Because it's all dollars and cents to them. Right. With a first-time home buyer, this is more than likely their most expensive purchase ever. Right. We all know how home buyers, whether they're first, second, they are kind of scared sometimes, right? It's like, absolutely. Is this the right neighborhood? Is the roof gonna cave in? Like I'm saying, I'm putting all my life savings into this house. What happens if the boiler goes out, right? So you have to handle them with a lot more care and be a lot more patient. I'm patient with all my clients because it can be scary, right? Like you've saved up hundreds of thousands of dollars and now you're gonna like throw it at this property, right? So I'm very patient. I think that's like one of my best characteristics, and being patient with my clients, answering questions, making sure they're comfortable in moving forward. Even if it's the neighborhood, listen, we can drive around their neighborhood whatever time you want. If it's questions, I'll answer their questions, or I'll bring in experts, right? So like I might bring in an inspector, like, answer these questions for my clients so that you're not just hearing it from me, or get the mortgage guy on the phone and answer those questions. So whenever I'm working with a buyer, I'm definitely like white glove, definitely going to take my time to explain things. I'm never really like impatient with them because I understand like this is a scary process, or can be a scary process for them.
Yeah, we actually had a buyer seminar. Scottie, you did one too. And we had clients from all over the area come in, and we had a loan officer there. It was us agents there. We had an attorney there, and we actually laid out the process for them. And I thought that was so beneficial because a lot of times people are scared. They don't know where to start. So we're there to guide them. And I actually converted one of the buyers from that seminar. We're actually in contract right now.
Nice. Oh, nice. Congratulations.
And I think the word that I heard both of you saying, and Tracy as well, is value. I think being able to not only demonstrate your value, it obviously goes way further than what you can say. You can say all day, I pick up the phone, I answer the phone all day, anytime you want. But if you're not actually showing proof of that, I think buyers, it's harder for them to feel a connection to you and feel confident in your ability to be able to help them. Because like you said, Isaiah, it is in many ways, not only the biggest, but the scariest transaction that they'll ever do. And so if they don't feel that the value that you provide beyond just your knowledge of the market, knowledge of the neighborhood, just being able to understand them, I actually would say one of my favorite things is being able to work with a buyer. As much as I enjoy the listing side, because I feel like I can get more creative in terms of marketing. Obviously, we all know that that's my background. But I do enjoy the process of working with buyers because I think the relationships that I've had in my career that I've had the longest relationship with have been my buyers, because we've been through it all. I've heard them go through the roller coaster of emotions of seeing a property, falling in love with it, walking into properties where they're like, we went into it all like glass-eyed, it's going to be great. And then we walk in, we're like, nah, this ain't it.
Yeah.
And so through that process, it may take longer. There's a lot of agents out there who don't necessarily want to put in that kind of sweat equity with someone. Unfortunately, some are out for the quick dollar, but the ones who are really good buyer's agents are the ones who can be that crutch for someone, but also be able to understand what they're trying to get out of it and communicate that way.
Right.
Yeah. And another thing is as well, I guess what I like to do is kind of throw my expertise their way as well. Because sometimes buyers, especially if it's your first time, you may not necessarily know what you want, or you think you know what you want. Right. But in reality, when you're dealing with the market, it may not be feasible. Yeah. So I do like to sit down with my clients, not interview them, but let's go through the process and try to get them to open up their minds to either like different property types or different neighborhoods, right? Because one thing that people do is like, I want to be in this neighborhood, the neighborhood, the lit neighborhood for now. And it's just like, listen, these prices here are a bit like the top of your budget. Maybe let's look at the next neighborhood over, because inevitably everything will flow over within the next couple of years. So whenever I do get a client that's a buyer, I do like to sit down with them and just go through the process and just reassure them, but also try to give them some knowledge that I've picked up throughout the years.
Yeah, and also one thing you forgot to mention is affordability too, because I've had a client live in Brooklyn for most of their life, and they want to be able to stay in the same neighborhood, but they've actually been priced out. So they ventured off, came up Upper Manhattan, got a deeper discount than they would in Brooklyn, and ended up closing for much more than they thought they would. So I think converting and knowing which neighborhoods to take your clients is super important.
Yeah. What property type was that?
It was a condo.
Yeah?
So she was able to get a 2-bed, 2-bath for just a little bit over $1 million.
Yeah.
Versus in Brooklyn, she was looking at 1.2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think, my bad.
No, I was just going to say, I think sometimes when you're working with buyers, especially if they're impressionable, I mean, I think that's your time like to shine pretty much and show them that value. But on the flip side of that, when you're working with a seller, sometimes they think they know everything. So they can't, so buyers, I think, are a little bit more open when they're working with you to just letting you guide them, letting you guide them and show them the ropes of what's happening.
Yeah. And a lot of it, just like Traci said, one of my favorite parts of working with buyers is like that new neighborhood discovery. Yeah. Where like Isaiah said, they want to be in the lit area. A lot of times we all fall victim to it. The thing that's the hot thing, that's whether it's the hotline or the headlines or where your friends are moving. Yeah. You just follow that without necessarily knowing how much it actually costs to live there. Right. You don't necessarily know any of the stats of what a good deal looks like there. And so specifically in Queens, I mean, Queens is the biggest part of New York City, right? But I think when people think of Queens, they think of maybe 2 to 3 places because they know it. Right. Or someone will say, 9 times out of 10, I want to live in Brooklyn. Everybody wants to live in Brooklyn these days. Isaiah's like, duh. But I think a lot of the education, to your point, Scottie, is why do you want to live there? Like, what are you trying to gain? Because if you want to live in a good school district, if you want to be able to pay a certain amount on your mortgage, or if you want a certain type of house, let me factor in all the things that you want. But let me actually show you some other places and drive you through literally sometimes some other neighborhoods that you didn't even know existed, where I had a client one time, she specifically said, she was like, I don't want to see anything in Queens. And I was like, okay, interesting, because I primarily work in Queens, but we'll make it happen. But, I took her we were in Brooklyn, and I took her to, we started off in Williamsburg. Yeah. Again, because everybody wants to live in Williamsburg. And we start driving, and we actually crossed over, and she didn't realize, and she was like, oh, this is a really cute neighborhood. What is this? And I was like, well, it's Queens. And she was surprised. And I think that discovery just opened up a whole array of opportunity that if I wasn't, one, willing to be able to kind of get her out of her comfort zone, maybe not letting her know that, but being able to understand that it's not that she's against it because she definitely doesn't want to live there. I think it's either an education of what the value could look like, or literally just seeing what it looks like to live there. Right. Sometimes being a good buyer's agent is just being able to understand psychologically what is it that they need to be able to feel like they're getting the right deal.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, for all of us though, follow-up question to that, right now there's a lot of buyers who feel like they don't even need an agent at all. What do you say to someone out there who, there's a lot of like what I hear called iBuying. You can just go on Zillow, go to an open house, and then maybe they meet a realtor at the open house or not. What is it that you say to someone that here's why you're able to work with me versus somebody else or even on your own to be able to actually get you the thing that you want at a better price? What do you say to somebody like that?
I would say you need a buyer's agent for someone to be on your team. You need someone that will be transparent with you. If you're working directly with the listing agent, they may or may not say everything that's truthful about the property. They may not tell you the best price you can get. Part of being a buyer's agent is running the comps, and that is the comps are the comparables of the following listings that have sold in the building. So you want to be able to see what each 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom has sold for instead of just blindly giving an offer. Most prices you see online is the aspiration price of the seller. As a buyer's agent, we look at the facts and we look at the comps to justify where we should land as far as an offer.
Right. What about you guys?
You know what? For me, it comes down to knowledge. I think you're basically skirting over that. It's like it comes down to knowledge. Even when you have buyers who think I can do it by themselves, they're still calling some broker a broker to ask them questions, right? So it's like, for me, as a buyer's agent, I want to give you my knowledge and I want you to take back your time, right? You shouldn't have to be doing comps or looking at negotiating with other brokers and things of that nature. I want to do that so that you can live your life, right? So for me, it's really just about the knowledge. Like the knowledge I bring, I've been doing this 8 years now. So like the different neighborhoods, especially in Brooklyn, where you've got like different blocks represent different things, or you could like it could be a different way of living from block to block in Brooklyn. So I want to bring that expertise to them.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. I mean, it's a lot of things to take into account. For one, you're working with a professional, right? So wouldn't you rather like put your biggest transaction in the hands of a professional rather than doing it yourself? It just doesn't make sense. It's going to save you time, going to save you money, and nowadays, especially when you're going into a co-ops, you have to be creative. You have to find out the loopholes and how to navigate through these processes, because building co-ops and stuff like that, there's more of a process as opposed to just buying a single family townhouse or something like that. So that may be, that's still a very big process. So
yeah.
And also, when you work with a buyer's agent has an attorney that they usually work with. You're going to need an attorney when you purchase a property. So I have my attorneys that I use. I know that they're going to communicate well. I know that they're going to negotiate the contract well. So that's part of my team. We also have inspectors that we work with. So you want a full service when you're working with the buyer's agent, and you want to make sure you can't get that kind of deal when you work directly with the listing agent.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Sai, like you said, we're professionals. We do this every day. This is not only how we put food on the table, but we're experts at what we do. Right. And so I think no matter how well-intentioned you are or how well-informed you think you may be, until you're doing this on a day-to-day basis and you've been in so many different properties, New York is very unique in comparison to the rest of the country because of just the different types of properties that you can get within this one landmass. Right. Until you've gone into each of them and been able to understand the difference in terms of value, it makes it a very different transaction. So even if you started on your own and you're like, all right, I'm going to buy this condo, great. Then what? A lot of people aren't able to communicate from a place of understanding of what has to happen next. Sometimes that's how they fall prey to sometimes maybe an unscrupulous listing agent, I'll say, who can see that as an opportunity for them to be able to work in the best interest of their client and themselves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the value that I think that I bring, and I know that I try to communicate to my clients, is that the best thing that I can provide for you is not only my network of people that I'm connected to, but also people, like Traci said, who will communicate to you what they are doing on your behalf, and you can walk in through that whole transaction feeling confident that you have the right reinforcements behind you, and you're not being taken advantage of at any stage.
Right. And then also, for the most part, I mean, it's at no cost to you as a buyer, you know, so it just makes sense. I mean, to say, right?
Ish.
Yeah, tight. But for the most part, you know, that
we won't get into that.
yeah, we won't
TBD.
get it. That's another topic. We'll save that for another day. But yeah.
But wait, not to cut you off though, but all right, let's just say you do have to pay for a buyer's agent, right? I think the four of us, based off just the things that we're saying that we bring to the table, if I told you that at the end of a transaction, not only did you feel supported, you felt like you got the best deal, you got everything that you basically wanted, and in some instances, my goal is always more. I want you to feel like you got added value. If I tell you that my fee is this, I haven't had a client yet, thank God, knock on wood, that has ever felt that my price wasn't worth it. Because I want to be able to make them feel that if I told you my price was $1, you got $5 worth of service, and you're willing to pay that $5 gladly and refer somebody. So I do think that in some instances, yes, you know, buyers may not have to pay buyers agents, but I do think the best buyers agents out there are the ones who are leading with their value, and then whatever they end up charging, they're worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't go at this alone, please.
Yeah, it's
Use a
not
buyer's
easy.
agent.
It's definitely not easy.
So, Scottie, like, I'm curious, what would be like your most rewarding experience with a buyer?
My most rewarding experience with the buyer, and it happens all the time, is their referrals, because that lets me know that I've not only did a service for them, but they trust me enough to allow me to do a service for their friends and families. Yeah. So that I think that's the greatest way to show your appreciation.
Yeah.
You know, it's even beyond money because it's trust factor.
Yeah.
What about you, Matthew? Any experience you've had, like any story with like a client and a buyer recently?
Yeah, actually.
You just sold a multifamily.
I did just sell a multifamily. But actually, you know, I'm very blessed that I've had great relationships with every single client that I've ever worked with. But I would say the most recent transaction that really like meant something is that this client, they were in a unique situation where they were a seller and a buyer. And so, you know, for those at home, you may be someone who needs to upsize or you need to move to a different neighborhood. And some people think that it's an easy thing to do. Oh, I'll just find this house and then I'll buy it, buy this other house. It's not as easy as that. And I think part of the reason that not only did at the end of the transaction, they left me such a glowing review, but just being in the trenches with them, what felt like a very straightforward transaction on the sell side, their house, we put it on the market and I put all of my marketing towards it. The first weekend, we got an offer. And so everybody was like, great. Obviously, they're very excited. But the real bulk of the transaction was actually on the buy side. They needed to feel like, now that we know that this house is going to sell, the place that me and my family, in this instance, they had 3 young boys who you have to think about school. You know, you have to be able to think about, you know, where are the things that for this family going into the next stage of their life, they've been used to, these boys literally were all born and raised in this house. So that next step for them, it was deeper than just being able to say you found something that could hit their price budget, being able to understand what for them made sense. And in this instance, they ended up moving upstate. But they felt supported throughout the process because there were so many loops and hills that we had to go through transactionally to be able to make sure that not only from a timing standpoint was it going to match up with the sale of their house, but in terms of making sure that they were actually going to get the best house that worked for them versus them feeling the pressure of having to buy something because they know that they're selling something quickly.
So you went from selling their house to helping them buy.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
So you had to like switch gears.
Had to switch gears. And in some instances, I had to be able to think through both lenses with them because in many instances, we would have late conversations. You know, they come home late for work and there could be an email that gets sent to them of a request. And they're like, I don't understand why we have to do this. And being able to tell them to take a step back and explain to them, here's why this is important. And like you said, Isaiah, being patient is the number one thing. And they communicated multiple times over that, like, we're family now because the patience that I showed for them answering any question, I genuinely don't believe in the home buying process. There's a dumb question because there's nothing about this that's straightforward.
In the same way, I tell my clients, throw the questions at me.
Throw it at me. Even if I said it to you yesterday, like, ask it again because I want to make sure that you understand because me being patient with you, you will then, by that next time, you're like, wait, I got it because you took the time, Matt, to explain it to me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I guess. Wait, are you asking about?
Yeah, like as a buyer's agent, like
the buyer's agent. Yeah,
giving your value,
Okay.
right? What has been like a story, like a rewarding story that?
So I think it's always rewarding for me. You said it, like when I become friends with them, right? So it's not just transactional, but like, okay, we've completed this transaction, and now you're my friend.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we hang out. Like one of my clients, my very first sale as a buyer's agent, my client Stacy, she was actually at my barbecue, right? And that was 8 years ago. But we're still in communication. We're still like talk from time to time on just like, hey, how are you? How are the kids? But when I helped her buy the place, I think her kids were in high school. Now I think they're graduating college. So, you know, like just being part of that process and just seeing things like I get invited to her gatherings and vice versa. So those are the things that are most rewarding to me. Like, and that's part of actually why I came into real estate. Obviously, I'm not from New York. So like I wanted to kind of build a community, and I figured coming into real estate would give me that opportunity to meet people. And so for me, that's kind of like the most rewarding thing.
Sure. I think the relationship aspect of this business is very crucial, you know? So that relationship could go one or the other way, right? So if you have to be intentional, you have to be, you know, create the value, of course, and create the trust with them.
Yeah, I would say like a lot of my clients have become my Instagram followers. And for the last few years, they've followed me and they stay in touch with me through Instagram. So you have a lot of agents that are like, oh, social media, I don't really like it. But it's needed for your business because I can follow up with clients over email, keep in touch with them over phone, but there's something about them seeing my day-to-day transaction to know, like, I remember when you were just doing rentals, now you're doing this. Like,
they're a part of your journey.
And so, exactly, and to have them on part of your journey, that's like the most rewarding thing for me. And then they also refer me to their friends and family, and, you know, we stay in touch.
Yeah, no, I agree. So last question, and this is going to be like a very neighborhood-specific one. So you got a buyer who says, I'll make up a number, or maybe we won't say a number, but they come to you and they say they want to buy a property. Where is the area in your borough that you take them to, and what's the property type that you're going to give them, where you're like, I got this thing for you?
I'm taking the buyers to Harlem. Right now, it is the best time to buy a townhouse. Single family, multifamily, typically a multifamily because the rent prices in Harlem are always going up. They don't descend. But I honestly feel like it's the best time to get those good prices that you could have got years ago. They're back. They're here. And, you know, offer concessions, offer price reductions. But I think it's definitely the best time to buy multifamilies uptown.
Nice. What about you?
I think I'm taking my buyer, and I've actually just taken one of my buyers to Tracy's property in Mount Haven. So I'll definitely take them there. Townhouses there, I think they're on discount. So
What about you?
Sorry to be a party people, right? But it really just depends on what they want, right? If they're interested in being a landlord, then I'll probably take them to a townhouse in Bed-Stuy, Clinton Hill, depending where they work.
Right.
Is it close to their work? So that's how I'll decide the neighborhood. If they have no interest in being a landlord, then probably take them to a co-op. Right? I mean, a condo. Yeah. Downtown Brooklyn, you got access to everywhere. So
we don't have that luxury in the Bronx.
Yeah, so I'll say, Brownstone, Brooklyn, right? So whether that's like, for the purpose of this podcast, like north of Brooklyn, east of Brooklyn, right? So we're talking about Brooklyn Heights. No, I was about Brooklyn Heights, Fort Greene. So Brooklyn Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, townhouses. Yeah. And if you talk about condos, then downtown Brooklyn.
Right.
Yeah, what's that one Brooklyn point?
The
one they just put Fogo de Chao in, I think.
Did they put one there?
Yeah, they put a Fogo de Chao in Brooklyn. I said Brooklyn's got it all. I can't lie.
Yeah. Brooklyn is.
But at what cost? That's what it is.
Expensive cost.
Because, all right, so bring it home. You know, my whole spiel that I explained to someone about Queens, for whatever reason, unless someone is a Queens native or they know specifically they want to be in Queens, there is some, in my experience, there's some kind of explanation of why Queens is the best value. And I stand by it because I do think people, you know, this is an investment. We're talking 15, 30 years down the line. I truly believe that out of any borough, at least right now, Queens represents the thing that they're going to look back on and be like, I'm glad that I took that leap to move to X neighborhood. And for me, I think if, like you said, Isaiah, if someone doesn't want to be a landlord, let's say they want an apartment, I'm telling them, okay, I'm going to tell you to go to Woodside, Queens, buy it today. Don't wait, because I think that bubble of opportunity in Woodside, because if you remember from previous episodes, Woodside is right next to Long Island City. So Long Island City, believe it or not, is still going up and up and up. And so naturally the values are going up and up and up. But if you're right on that border, Woodside is still primed to be able to benefit from that. And so you can get something that is going to appreciate much higher, at a much higher rate, in my opinion, than anywhere else in Queens. But if you are open to multifamily, which, if you didn't know, Queens has the most 2 families out there. Not as many, 3 and 4 families as in Brooklyn. But as far as 2 families, if someone wants to be a landlord or owner that's getting some kind of residual income,
sure,
I'm going to actually tell them to go more in Eastern Queens. There's neighborhoods out there that, especially because they're right off the LIRR, now that it's going to Grand Central, going to Penn Station, going to a lot of places that people need to commute into, you can still be 30 minutes away or less by train and still be able to get the backyard, get the space, and actually be able to go to a place like, somewhere that I really love. I generally love St. Albans, Queens. I think St. Albans, Queens is Eastern. It's closer towards Long Island. It's still in Queens, but you're getting the best value from a taxes standpoint. Your taxes are still lower, but you're getting a bigger house that more than likely the value of it, you'll probably spend for a 2-family, maybe in the neighborhood of like $800 to $900, which is under $1 million. That's a steal.
Yeah, and similar to like the Bronx, Tracy's property, I think the taxes
Thanks
are
for
like
promoting my property.
well, it's in my borough. So.
You want to give the address?
It's a little self-serving, actually.
The taxes, that's one thing that drew the
low.
buyer. They're very low. I think it's like $230.
$221 per month.
Per month on a 2-family home.
What?
So backyard and everything. So
1.1,
yeah,
about 18.75 wide.
Yeah.
Parking on the street. Great school on the corner.
And in comparison, just you're still close to the city, close to transportation. So
it's about 9 minutes from Harlem.
So my buyer is actually from Brooklyn, and she's from Upper Manhattan. So and she's looking to come up closer. So,
yeah. I mean, look,
we gotta make this deal happen too.
Right.
Yeah, we gonna get a Boro4Boro deal going. I want one of those.
Yeah.
But nah, team, this was another great episode. Sure. And I hope folks at home learned a lot about the market overall, but specifically about buying in New York City at this time. If you have any thoughts of buying, right now might be the time. So think about it, and not only think about it, hit one of us up, because
we would love to work with you.
We are buyers agents who provide value.
Absolutely.
But this has been another great episode of Boro4Boro. Thanks for checking us out.
Until
hit
next
that
time.
like, share, all those things.
Subscribe.
And we'll see you next time.
Sure.
Peace.
All right.
Great stuff, team.